Okay, so now that we've worked with simple polygons and created paths to create simple polygons and a fill with a fill and a stroke, we're going to move on to shapes with curves. So when drawing shapes with curves or making a path with curves, a good rule of thumb is to try to see the curve as part of a circle. So you can see here, I have a little diagram where this is the shape that you're drawing, but this arc is actually just a part of the circle that's this bigger circle, that is this bigger circle, okay? So when drawing a curve or creating a path with a curve, it's always good, I always say, to picture a compass rose, like the one that you see here at the right, okay? And when making the curve, never go more than one directional point on the compass with a single line segment. And what I mean by that is, if you're starting here at north and you're drawing to the east point, you can make that in one line segment, and you should make it in one line segment that has a starting point and an end point. You don't want to put too many points in the line segment. Moose, shut the fuck up now. Now. That's it. Done. Fucking shut up. Let's go. In the bedroom. Let's go. Come on, Max. Earth, go out. Go out. Okay, now that we've created shapes of simple polygons using the pen tool, creating paths, making fill and strokes, we're going to look at shapes with curves. And when drawing shapes with curves or making a path with curves, a good rule of thumb is to try to see the curve as part of a bigger circle. Okay, here's a perfect circle. And then the shape that you're drawing has just part of the arc up here at the top. But when you picture it as part of the full circle, a good rule of thumb is to picture a compass rose with north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, southeast, and southwest. And when creating a curve, never go more than one directional point on the compass with a single line segment. Okay, you'll put a starting point at north and an end point at east, and use your Bezier curve to create that curve from north to east. You can and should do that with just 2 points in one line segment. You don't want to use more than one because you try to create your shapes and paths with the least amount of points possible, because the more points you put in, the more room there is for error and little bumps and so on in the curve. Okay, now that being said, if your line continues past east, north, east, and down to southeast, or anywhere past the eastern point, it doesn't have to be all the way to southeast. It could be just slightly past. It can be almost at the south. Okay, I can go a little longer. It can be anywhere between these 2 points. Then you'll need to use 2 line segments and 4 points, 2 starting points and 2 end points. If we're starting at north, we plot a point at north and then come to east and plot a point, use our handles to create the curve, and then hold the Option key, click on top of the end point to start a new starting point, and come down to southeast and release the Option key first, come down to southeast, click on southeast, click, hold, and drag to create the Bezier curve that continues your line segment. So you have 2 line segments coming past north to east to southeast, and 1 line segment when you're making a curve that is with either to the next compass point or within the area before the next compass point. All right, so let's take a look at that down here and see how it works with our next exercise. I'm going to help you guys do one of these, and I think I'll do the mid-level one. We have an easy one, a mid-level, a hard, and on those I plotted the points for you so you know where to put your pen tool and click, and then click, hold, and drag to create the curve. Then I gave you a circle to do. And remember, with the compass rose, start at north, go to east, go to south, go to west, and finish back up at north. And then there's a very complex shape. Okay, you have this ribbon shape that I have for you down here that I'm going to let you try to figure out where to plot your points and how to make the curves. Okay, so that being said, I'll take this mid-level one right here, and there's a rhythm when creating curves. Okay, when we were creating straight lines for polygons, it was just simply click, and you were holding shift to keep the line either completely horizontal or vertical. And then you would just click for your second point, click to your next point, click to your next point, and finish up on the end point again with the little circle behind the pen tool telling you that your shape was closed. Okay. In making curves, it's a little bit different. There's a couple extra steps in there. Now you'll notice that just like in every other drawing that you're going to do or any other thing you're going to do in Photoshop, I have my layers out that I can see them. I have my paths. I have a background that's white. I have the template, which is right here, and I'm going to lock that up just so I don't move it. Okay. You have your template with the blue line so that you can see to draw over the top, and you have your paths. Okay. Now we remember that for every shape that we make, there's a new layer. So we'll want to make a new layer here, and we're going to call it shape 2 because it's the second shape in the exercise. Click OK. You'll see that that ends up over here at the top of your layers list, and it's grayed out so you know that it's selected. All right. Then we're going to grab our pen tool. We're going to start in a corner like we did with the polygon shapes. I always like to start in a corner. You can start anywhere on this shape. I'm sorry, we're doing the shape down here. We'll start with the with this corner, and just like when creating a polygon, you can simply click and release, and you'll see that there's a point there and that there's a work path over here now that's been created. Right? Let's go in there and name that work path shape 2. You'll note that the work path is named shape 2 and the layer is named shape 2. The work path is where you tell the computer where you're going to put the art and how to create it. And the shape 2 is what houses that particular shape or that piece of art. Okay, so this is where it lives. This is where you're creating it. But they should match up with the same names. Okay, so we have our first point on the, it was just click and release for the first point. So we're going to come over to our second point, and we're going to do a technique that is going to be a click, but don't release the mouse. It's click, hold, and to make that curve, we're going to drag the mouse down to make the curve go up. You always drag in the opposite direction when creating the curve. Okay, so if the curve is going up like this, we want to pull down on our handle that we're going to create. So it's click, click and hold, and drag, and you'll see those handles coming out. Drag that handle down and to the right, and you can line it up right on top of the template and release. Okay, now you have 2 handles a handle here, and a handle here. And those handles, they control the curve. Okay. So I'll show you once I'll show you now. With the white selection tool over here, or direct selection tool, you can select one of these handles and change where that curve is. Okay. And now the curve goes in the direction that you're pulling the handle, because the handle on the side of the curve, okay, here's your point, here's the curve. This handle will control this curve. And if you pull it up, it goes up. If you pull it down, it goes down. You can use that to do fine tuning. Okay. You also have a second handle. Okay. This handle right now will control that line as well, but we only want one controlling handle. So if you take this up, that curve's going to go down. If you take it down, that curve's going to go up. That's a little more confusing than, the right way is that, when you pull up, it goes up, pull down, it goes down. The way we get rid of this second handle, because we definitely do not want two handles, we want one handle that's going to control this curve. The way you do that is you hold down the Alt or Option key with your pen tool selected, Alt or Option key, and click right on top of that endpoint to make the starting point for this next line segment. This line segment has a starting point and it has an end point. Okay. So we're going to give this one a starting point and end point as well. And when you hold down the Option key, you get a little caret when you're right on behind the pen tool, when you're right on top of the end point. That's when you want to click and hold, or just click and release, and watch what happens to that handle. Okay. Option key, Alt or Option is pressed down on the keyboard, and we're going to click with the pen tool with the caret right on top of that endpoint, and you'll see that handle disappears. Okay. And now we've also created a starting point for the second line segment. So we can come over to the next point. And when you're completing your line segment and making a curve, remember, it's click and hold the mouse down and then drag. And to make the curve go where you want it to go, you drag up to make it go down and right to make it go left. Okay. So it's completely opposite when you're creating the curve. But then when you want to, excuse me, make one handle working this curve only, you want to hold the Option key, click on top of that endpoint, and remember, we're making a new starting point to create this line segment. Click on top of that endpoint, and the one handle disappears. This handle now controls this curve, and we can move on to do the rest of our shape. Okay, the rest of our shape is all straight lines. So now we can just go on top of the endpoint and hold down the shift line, because this is, or the shift key, because this is a completely vertical straight line segment. So we'll just click and release. We'll come over here to this point, click and release. This is just like when you made your polygons. Okay. And then we'll hold down the shift key, go up to this endpoint, and you'll see that we will be closing the curve, or the shape. You get that little circle behind the pen tool, click and release. And now you have a path. Let me turn off the vector, or the template. You have a path that's shaped for your shape. Now remember, we still don't have art yet, because look at your layer. There's nothing in that layer yet. So you have to, in order to fill in stroke, you do the same thing you did with the polygons. You make sure your path is selected, go to the hamburger menu, click on it, come down to make selection, leave the feather radius at 0 and click OK, and you get your marching ants. Now you go to shape 2 in the layers, make sure that that's gray. Down here, it's black, so it's not selected in the path anymore. You can't have the path and the shape selected. So you click on the layer for shape 2, and over here on our color box, right now we have gray and magenta. I don't think I like that. I want the foreground color to be black. So I'm going to click on that and then take my eyedropper and come down here and get black in my box with all zeros down in this corner. Okay, all zeros. When the circle's there, click OK. And now my foreground color is black. My background color, I'm going to click on there, and I'm going to make my shape like a solid red. Okay, so we'll click in there and make the solid red. You can make it any color that you want, but I'm going to choose a solid red and click OK. And now you'll see my background color is the solid red. All right. Now we're going to put a fill and a stroke on this in this shape. So we'll go to Edit, Fill, and we're going to select the background color of red for the fill. So background color, click OK, and you'll see that it turns red. Then we'll go to Edit, come down again to Stroke, and the stroke automatically selects your foreground color, which is black. The pixel width will make 6 because 6 is a single 1-point rule. And we want to put the location right on top of the marching ants. So we'll select center. If we would select inside, it would put the stroke inside the marching ants. If we select outside, it would put it outside the marching ants. Center puts it right on top of the marching ants. Click OK, and you have your shape stroked and filled with the proper colors. And then to release the marching ants, I'm going to go up to Select, Deselect, and the marching ants are now gone. We can turn off the layer for the template to take a look at our shape. And there we have our red shape with the black stroke, and you have a piece of art in shape number 2. The rest of the exercises, they get continuously harder, okay? This is the first one. This is the most simple, obviously, just one arc and then square along the bottom. Second one is the one we just did with 2 arcs and the square along the bottom. This one is pretty hard, okay? The way I recommend that you do this shape is I would start in the middle, okay? And then make this arc that comes right here, like so. And then come this way, come all the way up to the top, come all the way back down, over here, up there, around, and then finish the shape here. That's a little harder, okay? I'm going to do that one with you too, so you can see what the finished shape would look like. I'm just going to do it rather quickly. Remember, click and release to start, and that's okay. And we're going to do work path, and we're going to make that work path shape 3. Okay, we need a place for it. New layer, shape 3. All right, so we've clicked and released for the first point. We're going to come down to this point over here. We're going to click, hold, and drag to create that shape. And it's a little more difficult of a shape to make. Okay, so now we have 2 handles over. We have an arc, starting point, and end point. We have an arc and we have our 2 handles. Remember, we want to get rid of one of the handles. So we're going to Option, hold down the Option key, click on top of the end point to create a new starting point. Get rid of that one handle. And then over here at our next point, we're going to click, hold down the mouse, and drag upward to make a downward arc. Here we go. Click and hold, drag, and we make that arc, okay? We want to get rid of one of the handles, so we hold down the Option key, click on top of this endpoint. You see the caret behind the pen tool, so you know that you're on top of the point. Click and release to give the starting point. The end point, remember, the end point when making an arc is click down the mouse and hold it, drag in the opposite direction to get it to go where you need it to go. Okay. And then release the mouse. Then we're going to do the same process. We roll over the top of that endpoint, press down the Option key and hold it, click and release, come down to our next point, click, hold, and drag to create that shape or that arc. Okay. Option key, caret behind the mouse, click and release, come up to the next point, click down that mouse and hold it and drag it upward to make that downward arc. Click, hold, and drag. And we need to drag to the right too, because it's a pretty weird looking shape or arc that we're making. Okay. That's going to be the hardest part for you right there. Okay, we have the two handles. We want to get rid of one, roll over that endpoint, hold down the Option key and click and release to create the next arc. To make that endpoint at the end of this line segment, click, hold, and drag. You'll notice that the handles are almost completely vertical there. They are actually completely vertical to make that one. So it's like straight up and down. Okay, but we have two handles. We're going to get rid of it. Hold the Option key down, click on top of that endpoint when you get that caret, click and release. And then to make the endpoint over here, click, hold, and drag. And we're going to end up right up here at the top. See how when I roll over, it gives me the pen tool with the little circle behind. That means our shape is going to be closed. But we have two handles over here. To get rid of that one handle, hold down the Option key, click on top of the endpoint to create a new starting point, and come up to our endpoint that we're going to create, which happens to be the starting point for the entire shape. And it's got the little circle behind the pen tool telling us that we're closing that shape. So you click, hold, and drag. And there you have your path for the complex shape that we've just made. Now you'll see down here, it's not quite perfect, right? So if it's not perfect, go to your, you can zoom in. And with any of these points, okay, you can select that white arrow. Now it may have maybe the black arrow. If you select the black arrow, it's going to move the whole path. You don't want to do that. You just want to use the direct selection so that you have the white arrow and you can click on this point. And when you click on this point, you'll see that you get its handle, okay? It's this shape that we're looking at though. So we need to click on this point because the handle that's in the direction of the arc is the one that controls the arc. And now we can firm up that drawing a little bit just by moving that handle. See, we can take it up, we can bring it down and firm up that the accuracy of that handle. We can do that for all of them actually. When we click here, that point's not quite right, so we'll bring it down and put it where it needs to be. And then you can adjust this arc with that handle. Okay, I wouldn't worry too much about making adjustments unless it's really, really off, because you're just getting started at this, and it's a little complex when you start trying to move handles around to make things exact. You could screw up what you've done correctly, actually. So now we have all our points in the right place, all our arcs in the right place. It's shape 3. It's gray here. We want to make that active and get our marching ants so we can fill and stroke this. Hamburger menu, make selection. As soon as you do that, you get the make selection box, feather radius 0, click OK. You'll notice that that gives you the marching ants and releases the path over here. But the shape is selected. Shape number 3 is where you're going to go in the layers list. And that's where we're going to fill and stroke this. We're going to place this image in shape layer 3, and you go to the edit pull down menu, and we're going to fill it. And we're going to fill it with the background color, which is red. Red's your background, black's your foreground, because the black box is in front of the red box. We'll click OK, and we'll fill it with red, and watch where it fills. Okay? And then we're going to stroke it with the black color, the edit pull down menu, stroke. 6 pixels is correct. In the center is where you want it, and it's black because that's the last color you used, and it's also your foreground color. And click OK, and there is your shape. And then you can release the marching ants either by select, deselect, and if you're using a Mac, it is Command D. If you're using a PC, it is the Alt key, Alt D to deselect. Okay, so there's your shape, and we can look at it by turning off the template. And it's not quite as accurate as I'd like it to be. You can see that there's a little hiccup in there at the starting point, and in this point down here. These ends look pretty good, but for this exercise, that'll be okay. You can leave it just like that. It's somewhat difficult to make this shape, and if you can get it to look something like this, that would be fantastic. Okay, so that's creating shapes that have curves. Remember, look at it and see the shape as part of a circle, and think of your compass rose. Don't go past the next directional point with less than 2 line segments. If you go past, you need 2. 1, 2. If you're just going anywhere in between or to the next directional, you should be able to do it with 1 line segment. Okay, good luck with this. It's a little bit harder than the straight polygons, but I'm sure with a little practice, you guys will be able to master it. If you have any questions, you know how to contact me. Thanks. Have a good day.